everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am here today because it's winter and it's a difficult time of the year for many people, the time before Christmas. It's also the start of what I see as a blue season. If I would associate one color with winter, it would be blue. The winter blues, the Christmas blues, the January blues. There's a lot of blues ahead of us. Blue is my favorite color, but it's also a very melancholic color and a melancholic mood. So I went to my bookshelf and looked at all of the blue books that I've read this year that I really liked, that I think are great book recommendations for different needs that you might have right now. Based on your vibe, we're doing vibes. We're doing blue vibes. I have broken them down into 3 categories. If you need a hug, if you need to cry, or if you are in a pensive mood, just in the mood to think, reconsider, to dive into some deep blue thought. I have different books for each of these categories, and I've kept in mind that we all have a super short attention span right now, if any at all, and that these have to be books that are accessible for everyone. Nothing too dense, nothing too long, nothing too complicated. We need that simple format for our brains right now.
Not someone that you can use. Not someone that you can use. I just want to see the truth. I don't want to sing the blues.
So let's get started. And we're gonna get started with the first category, which is books that will give you that hug that you're missing because you're alone and miserable. And no, I'm not talking from personal experience, of course. Just imagining what it would be like. So I have 3 books here. So the way I'm going to recommend them is based on an imaginary scale. So how bad do you need that hug? From 0 to 10. And we're going to start from 10, okay? I'm here for you, okay? To just believe in this. Believe in the process. So the first book I'm going to recommend is A Monk's Guide to Happiness by Gelong Thupten. Gelong means monk, so Monk Thupten. Meditation in the 21st Century. And this is a really nice light blue, kind of leaning towards a turquoise. Now this book is one that I've mentioned in another video as well, I believe. It is that soothing hug that we all crave right now. The reason I'm recommending this is not because I think that you just need to start meditating and that will save your problems, which, by the way, is not something that I've managed to achieve myself, and it's been months that I've read this book and now I'm rereading it and I'm still struggling with making it a habit. Wanting to do something is one thing, getting it done is a whole other chapter in a different book, in a different library. So the point is that it talks about some struggles we all face in the modern world, the fast-paced lifestyle that many of us have, technology being there to constantly keep your cortisol levels high, just keep you stressed, keep you on edge, the difficulty of being able to just appreciate what is happening in the moment, and in general just have this calm understanding of where you are and what you're doing without grasping for something in the future, all of those things. And this book, it's not criticizing you or judging you. It's just gently luring you in, whispering, you need to calm down. I will tell you how, and you will take it slow, and it will work. And I think this is exactly what we all need in general, but specifically if you need a hug, this is the first place I would go to. If you are in the middle of the scale, so you need a hug, you're stressed, you're not dying right now, you have some patience to wait for your treatment. For that case, I would recommend, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller. This is, oh my god, I read this so recently, so I'm still very obsessed with it. I read it this week. This is the current Lives Library pick, so I can't get the credit for discovering this book, and I don't think I would have read it if I had seen this book in a bookshop or someone had recommended it and described it the way that it's described on the back or whatever. I think I would have definitely not gone for it. Just the fact that it has fish on the title isn't, I don't know, I'm not that interested in fish. I'm too scared to describe it in a way that will put people off of reading it because it defies categorization, and it's really, really amazing. It's so original. I was wonderstruck while reading it. And Lulu Miller this is the first book she's written, and it's non-fiction technically, although it feels like fiction when you're reading it because it's so It's just so, okay? I've tried describing this many times over like the last 2 days of like trying to plan and film this video, and I can't, and I've decided I'm not going to. You just have to trust me and read it. It's partially a memoir, partially has biographical information about the first president of Stanford University. He was an interesting character. You could say that. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say. Just read it. It's one of my favorite books of the year. And the last book in the hug category, this is probably technically the only novel on this list, and it's a beautiful classic. It's empowering. Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God, and just can you just admire this book for a second, because anyway, the protagonist here is a huge girl boss babe in the Carly appropriation of the word, of course, and it's very much in that spirit that she just lives her life. And the most amazing thing is that Zora Neale Hurston published this book with a black, independent, dynamic female heroine at its heart, which many say is inspired by her own life. Published it in 1937, and you can imagine how the men felt about it. I mean, and there's a reason why Zora Neale Hurston is considered one of the greatest American writers of the 20th century, and also this is a great American novel. It's great. It's really empowering. It's very pioneering feminist work in 1937. Thank you very much.
I don't wanna see the blues, I just wanna see the truth. I don't wanna see the truth, I don't wanna see the blues. It's something I never knew.
Moving on to the books that I will recommend if you are in the mood for a good cry. So again, on the scale, we're gonna start in the opposite end this time, but we're gonna start with a book that is a good idea to read if you've had a really bad, shitty day and you're back home and you just want to read, you just want something to make things better. You're not in complete and utter despair yet. And for that vibe, I will recommend Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. And this book that I've heard people I know really enjoyed and that got Hemingway the Nobel Prize for Literature is tiny. It was indeed really good. In the beginning, I was like, I don't get where this is going. It is really good. So this takes place on the Gulf Stream off the coast of Havana. Hemingway lived in Cuba for many years. The basic premise is that this fisherman is going out to sea. He's old and he wants to get a big fish. I always don't like giving plot details because I feel like it gives this idea that a book is about its plot, and it's not. And for me, I go into most of these without knowing what they're about, and I just read them because the plot is really not the main thing in the book most of the time. And if someone described this book to me the way that I'm describing it now, I wouldn't read it. But I guess that's because I suck at what I do. Okay, you can substitute the journey that the old man goes through in this book for literally any endeavor that you have in your life, or anything that you think of, anything you want to achieve, anything you have been through. You can put that in the place of the giant fish that this man is after in the book. It's very powerful and it's tiny. It's great to read in an evening and kind of manage to salvage that day that has gone badly. Now let's move towards the middle of the scale for a recommendation if you're feeling quite a bit blue. You're not very depressed, but you're also not depressed, and you want a book that will embrace the blues that you're in. And I think this is probably the most predictable book on this list of books about this video because it's literally about the color blue. It is Bluets by Maggie Nelson. Bluets is quite versatile and deals with different facets of the experience of color in life through the color blue, which is Maggie Nelson's favorite color, and also she's very intoxicated by the color blue and she applies it to a lot of different things in her life. So because there are some observations that she makes that are about past relationships, some observations that quote famous philosophers, authors, and carry quite the depth in them, I think that the thing that makes this book accessible if you are feeling blue is the format. So there are these numbered paragraphs and the entire book has this format. So it's just reading paragraphs and it's prose. It's lyrical at times, poetic at times, but it's definitely not poetry. It's really also something you can read in one sitting. I also love the color blue. Maggie Nelson, in the book, she says that it's the favorite color of half of the human population. I don't know who did that research, but the point is quite interesting because there is something mesmerizing about this color. Then you can sit there and think about all the blue things in your life and how you feel about the color blue. Bluettes was an interesting experience and I'll definitely read it again. Finally, this is one of two quite heavy books on this list. Naturally, if we are talking about blue books, there is going to be some content that is difficult, and this is one of those. Not everyone who's feeling really low or numb from just feeling like crap wants to read something about grief and loss. But I personally think this is a beautiful book that discusses various different aspects of life and loss and illness and the fear of growing old. It's Blue Nights by Joan Didion. Joan Didion is the person you need to read if you're feeling really depressed. Just any Joan Didion. It's because her writing is depressing. And I mean that in the best way possible because she's so good at using words. She feels the pulse of life being so meaningless and just numb if you look at it with really like dead eyes, and she grasps that, and it's part of her writing by default. So if you don't want to read about grief, you can still pick up any Joan Didion. But I picked Blue Nights because I read this most recently. Joan Didion abruptly lost her husband. She wrote The Year of Magical Thinking, and it was hailed as a very great memoir on grief and just pioneering in that aspect. And then shortly after it was published, she lost her only daughter, also abruptly fell in a coma. Blue Nights is about that. It's her second memoir, and she only has these two that are quite difficult to read. Say the difference with Blue Nights is it is a lot more general in scope, although it is raw and filled with very real hurt. It's not as specific, so that's why I put it in this video, because it's much more about the blues of life in general than it is about how to deal with grief. So if you're feeling really out of it, this might be the book you need. We're now gonna try to lighten the mood a bit with the third category.
What I do, what it feels like I don't have you. Won't you tell me something that I never knew?
Here is the part for my people out there who are feeling like reading a book that will make them reflect a bit on their identity, make them just contemplate whatever verb you want to use. I just want to clarify that there are two types of thinking. As a person who's studying philosophy, there is also philosophy to read. This is not that kind of video, but as I was planning it, I noticed that on my bookshelves I had two really quite clearly two blue books that are indeed great if that is the kind of thinking that you want to do. I am not recommending them because I don't think you need them if you're feeling blue. But if you want to do it, I'm not going to stop you. Good luck. The first one is Hegel's Elements of the Philosophy of Right, and very blue, as you can see. This is an older edition, but yeah. And the second is Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. I've obviously only read parts of these books, and I will never ever, I don't think, ever read them in their entirety. But we can safely say that especially this one is written in a way that definitely, I don't know, I really think he could have tried harder to write better. Hegel really, yeah. And this other German guy is also pretty hard to grasp, but at least I really think Hegel is a worse writer. Both of them want to express ideas that are super difficult to describe, so you have to give them some brownie points for that. But also, I really think Hegel could have tried a bit harder to write better sentences and not torture philosophy students of the future. Now that we've clarified what kind of thinking I mean, let's move with the last three books. How neat is it that each category has 3 books and there are 9 books in total? And it was totally by accident. This is literally the exact number of very good blue books that I've read this year. I didn't plan it. You want to contemplate your own identity, your own life, maybe more concrete terms, maybe just do some introspection about you specifically, then you're on the lower end of the scale. If you want to think more about life, what is human nature, how can I really grasp some aspects of it, then you're on the higher end of the spectrum, of the scale. I'm gonna start with the lower end of the scale just because I really don't know how to talk about the book on the higher end of the scale. And with this kind of vibe, I will recommend a book that I've actually reread this year. So I read it for the first time this year and then I read it again. I Am by Maggie O'Farrell. Maggie O'Farrell is the author of Hamnet that was very successful last year, and it's a novel, but this is her, I think, first memoir. But it's a memoir written again in small sections, small chapters, so it's great for your attention span right now. She chose to describe different stories, different anecdotes from her life, all had in common that her life, or the life of someone super close to her, was put at risk somehow. What I really find exciting is that it's broken down into body parts. I don't know, there's a chapter called Cranium, Circulatory System. So it's broken down into the parts of the body that were affected. All of those different disjointed moments in her life that she was at risk or someone else was at risk, and it really makes her consider things more macroscopically. And I can guarantee that if you read this, you will start thinking about all the times you could have nearly died. So that's fun. Now we're moving towards the middle of the not too personal, but not too general. Creativity is the topic of this book. And I think of all the books on this list, this is the one that you can read the fastest because it has these really one-paragraph chapters, literally. This is David Lynch. It's called Catching the Big Fish, Meditation, Consciousness and Creativity. If you're in general a creative individual making art, making any kind of thing, and it's interesting to you how consciousness and inspiration are related, and experiences of David Lynch could kind of help you explore your own creativity and think about, meditate on your own experiences. Anyone who knows me in real life and could just stumble upon this video and reach this point of it and hear me recommend or even just own a David Lynch book, I think will be quite surprised, to say the least, because I have voiced my dislike of David Lynch in very not nuanced ways to anyone who likes films. And that's because David Lynch kills my patience. He kills it. Like, I am not known for my patience as a person, but watching a David Lynch film makes me, I want to attack the screen of whatever device is projecting that film. Laptops, tablets, I don't know, TVs, it's just, I feel a violent urge, and I don't watch David Lynch films because I don't vibe with the way he indulges in this narcissistic exploration of his like unconscious, subconscious dream world. It's just, it's too much for me. It's too much. I can't. But I respect it because he really managed to make his very unique vision popular with a mainstream audience in a way that he stays true to himself. I really respect. So I respect him. I get it. However, doesn't mean I have to like his films, but I liked the book. The hardest book to describe on this list. If you are about to vibe with some serious thinking about the human condition, and I say condition because there's no other way to describe the extremes that humans are capable of in this life. For that kind of mood, I think this should be required reading. This is Primo Levi's Survival in Auschwitz, and this was actually originally titled If This Is Man, because it's literally about how do I keep my humanity, and what does my humanity even mean if this is what a human being is capable of and what they're capable of en masse. How to even grasp the concept of a human being after going through what he went through and seeing the worst face that humanity can offer. He really gives a lot of details about day-to-day life in the camp. A lot of the times he mentions that he probably survived mostly out of luck. It's a very, very rational, very clear-eyed, very, very thought-inducing approach. Maybe as much as it induces shock and emotional, makes you think as much as it makes you feel. So with this really, really powerful final recommendation, this 10-star read, I am ending my list of books that I recommended in this video. These were the books I would recommend for different moods that you can find yourself now that we are entering the winter season. I hope that this was inspiring in some way to kind of spice up your reading list or just get you in the mood to read anything, even if it's not one of these books. Although, of course, I would be super excited if one of those books kind of clicked with you. Of course, my camera died again. I just want to take a moment to thank every single person who has subscribed or liked or commented on my videos. Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for taking any amount off of your day to watch my video, like it, or just subscribe to my channel. So really sincerely thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. If you have any ideas, recommendations, or requests, let me know. I will be happy to try and adapt, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.
I don't wanna see the blue.